Hi everyone, it's Janelle from Nellsbelles Designs. So today I'm back again today to teach you how to draw and paint this super cute bunny. So the items you're going to need today to complete your project is a pencil, a rubber, a Sharpie or some kind of permanent marker, some marking pens, some paints, and I'm using my watercolour paints and my watercolour pens. So I'm going to use the Super Tips washable markers and a paint, as I said, paintbrush and some water. So let's get started. I'm just going to move these all out of the road, and like I said, if you're going to use anything with water, you need to make sure that you're using watercolour paper. If you're going to use just normal pencils, markers, crayons, you can use any kind of paper that you've got on hand. So I said, we've got our watercolour paper here to go, we've got our drawing ready to go, and it's just a matter of now taking that picture and putting it onto this page. So the first thing we're going to do is look at the shapes and the lines that are in our drawing. And as you can see, the bunny's head takes up most of the page. And you can see that we'll start with the face, and you can see that it's pretty much centered in the middle of the page. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that onto my watercolor paper. So I'm going to start at the top here, and I'm just going to start up here and go around in a curve. And I'm going to come back around. A curve and draw our curve. So we've got our face on our page. So the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at the nose and the mouth and his cheeks. So we're going to draw that piece. So you can see that it's just made up of a couple of curvy lines and the majority of an oval. So we'll get started with that, and I'm going to draw the line, the top of the nose first, that little curvy line, then I'm going to do the cheeks. So let's get started. So I'm going to, even though we've got the line here, we will rub that out later. That's just giving me my angle of where we're going to go. And we can see when we look at the picture here that his nose and his cheeks center over the oval. So I'm going to look at my piece of paper here now, where I've got my oval, and I'm going to look at it, and I'm going to just decide on where I'm going to put my little curvy line, and I'm going to go here on my page. So there's that first part of this curvy piece that goes over his nose, and I'm going to take out another curve that goes out and around, and I'm going to bring that back down in here. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger. Sorry, I'm going to rub that out and make that a little tiny bit bigger. Just not big enough for what I want. So, and this is what happens. We do this on when we draw. Sometimes we come back and we rub things out. So I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to go out. I'm going to bring his other jaw down, and then I'm going to do a circle. And that looks quite funny the way it is now, but once we put him all together, he will come together really nicely. So I'm going to rub those little bits out, those lines now, and get rid of them, just so that we're out of the way. Sometimes I leave the rubbing until the end, but I'm going to get rid of that now, just so that you can see what I've done. So I don't want you getting confused with the lines. So then we've got his face, and we've got his cheeks and his mouth. So let's go in and draw that. So you can see, looking at his face, that his nose is oval. So I'm going to draw an oval circle just in here for his nose, and then I'm going to add his little mouth, and I will do that. And again, looking at that, it's just a line. It comes down on a circle on both sides, and then it's got just a little flick on each end to give the illusion of puffy cheeks, and then we've got his little mouth. So I'll go ahead and draw that now and put that on our page. So starting in the center, I'm going to come down and go around, and I'm going to bring the other one down and go around, and then I'm going to draw in his mouth, and I'm going to give him his little curves on the end of his mouth. So now I'm going to draw his eyes, and as you can see, his eyes sit on top of his cheeks, and they're made up of two big curves. So you've got the outer edge, and then you've got his eyeball, which we're going to do. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And as you can see, they sit on top of his puffy cheeks, and they look just so super cute. So looking at this, I'm going to position his eye, and I'm going to go out on a curve and bring it around. So that's the outer curve, and then I'm going to put in the center eye, and I'm going to do a little circle here for the highlight. So now I'm going to do the other side. So I'm going to start about here, I'm going to come up and go around, and I'm going to do the center circle part of his eye, and then I'm going to do another little circle there. So now we've got his eyes. And his eyes, of course, have got some nice little flicks out the end of them to give him some cute little eyelashes. And now we have the eyes. So the next step is to do the ears. And looking at this, the ears come out, one comes right out and one comes out on a curve. Now you may decide to do the ears exactly the same way. You may want to do your ears pointed up in the air and not have that little curve. That's entirely up to you. And looking at them, they don't come down and they don't actually meet. They actually have a break in between. So there's a little bit of a space between each, where the one side of the ear starts and the other side finishes. So I'm going to go ahead now and add that to my drawing, and we're going to do his ears. So starting about here, I'm going to go out and around, and I'm going to bring his ear into about here. And then I'm going to do the center part, which is the line, and then I'm going to draw another. So there we've got his the inner ear, and then I'm going to come over here and do the second ear, and it starts about here. I'm going to go out on an angle, go around, and bring it back like that. So he's got a little bit of a different shape on that ear. And then I'm going to draw in his center ear, which is just a circle. Right, I'll go around, starting at a point, going out and around, and bringing it back to the point. And as you can see, we've got a nice little cute bow on the end of it, on his ear here. So you may not want to do that. If you want to make it more of a boy kind of bunny, you don't need to do that. You can actually just leave that off. You might want to draw a bow tie down the bottom here instead of drawing his feet. But I'm going to do my little bow up here, and we're going to add that. And as you can see, that's just a circle, and then we go out to the top. We go like on kind of like a triangle. We go out with a little curve and a round straight line, another curve, and bring it back. And we do the other side as well. So we start with a circle. I'm just going to draw my circle in here, and then I'm going to take my bow out, and I'm going to take it down, and I'm going to bring it back. So that's one side of the bow, and then I'm going to come out and down, and I'm going to bring that back there. So there we have the second part of our bow. And again, we've got these lines that are in there, so we can rub those lines out, because what we don't want to do is leave them, so that when we use our marker and go over and put those lines in, we don't want to have those lines. So we want to make sure that they're not in our drawing. So if we accidentally put them through, we'll have a big black line going through the center of our bow. So we'll take them away and rub them out, and then we've just got our circle, and then we've got our bow. So the other thing that he's got, if you have a look at on our little bunny, he's got some little tufts, like he's got some little furry bits on it. So all they are is just little points that come out in a zigzag, and I'm going to add them now to ours. So I'm going to bring this part of his head around, and I'm going to come out on an angle, and I'm going to come back, another zigzag, and I'm going to bring that in. So then we've got, rub those lines out, we have now, he's got, our little bunny has got some pretty cute little tufts of fur sitting out the edge. And I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to bring my pencil down, I'm going to bring it down on an angle, just on a curve, I'm going to take it straight up, on another curve, bring it down to a point, take it up, and then bring it down to join. So I'll come down on a curve. Oops, that's a bit, let's do that again. So we come down on a curve to a point, let's take it up, and then bring it down on another curve, up, and then bring that down. And now he's got some little tufts of fur on either side of his face. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw in his little feet. And all they are just two little curves, and then we're going to do some little, on the bottom of it is three little curves on the bottom. So we do one big curve that goes around, and we bring it around to another point, and then we come back and just do three little curves on the center. So let's just do that with our bunny. So we're going to come here, I'm going to do a curve and bring that into the middle, and then I'm going to go my three curvy little feet, and then I'm going to bring another one out on a curve, and I'm going to do three little curves here like this, and that gives us our feet. So there we have our bunny. So now I just want to make sure that I've got rid of all our lines that are all over it, so I know that I'm going to, where I don't need my pen, my black pen, I want to keep that fairly neat so that I know where my lines are, so that I don't have to accidentally put in a line that shouldn't be there. So the other thing I will do before we go any further is do some circles on our bow. And now you may decide that you don't want to do circles. You might want to do stripes, and then just colour them in with different colour stripes. Or you might want to do some swirls, or you just might want to do what I've done and did some circles. This is entirely up to you, so you can decorate your bunny's bow however you would like to do that. And I'm going to go ahead and do my circles. So I'm going to start with a circle here, and then I'm going to work in triangles. So there's one circle, and then I'm going to come down here and do another circle, and my triangle will come out here, so I've got a half circle. And then I've got this part of a triangle, and I'll bring a triangle out here, which then means I've got another circle there. So there's one part of it, one line of it, and it'll come out on a triangle here. So I'm going to do my other circle there, and this one here comes out, and I'm going to do a half circle there. And then there's those two, and then I'm going to do a full circle there. Then I'm going to start on the other side, and I'm going to do a circle here, and then I'm going to come down here and do a half circle and another circle, and then I'm going to do another half circle up there, and then that's one. So I'm going to do a circle there, there's one, I'm going to do a half circle there, so there's those two, and I'm going to do another circle there, and we'll put a little bit one just to tidy up that corner there on that. So there you are. There we have our bunny drawn. Isn't he super cute? Now it's all about putting some colour onto it and painting it up. And as I said before, I'm going to be using a bit of both today. So I'm going to use my watercolour paints, and I'm going to also use my Crayola washable markers. And the first thing I'm going to do before we do that is I'm going to outline this with my Sharpie pen or your permanent marker, so we've got the outline of our bunny. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to do the bow. So I'm going to do the bow circle, and then I'm going to go out, and like anything, our pencil line is just a guide. So that's our guide to lead us where we want to do and put our markings for our designs on our bow or our bunny, whatever it is that we're drawing. So there's my circles. We just carry on putting our circles in our bow with our pen. And then I'm going to do his ears, and I'm going to bring his ear up. And we've got the inside of his ear. And then I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to do this side of his face or her face, and do our lines. I'm going to do our next lines, and then we'll do the ear up here. So I'm going to go the inner ear, and then we're going to do his little face, his little nose and cheeks. And then we're going to do his nose. I'll do a circle for his nose, his mouth, his little curvy bits on the ends of his mouth. So then we have his mouth, and then I'm going to do his eyes, which is the circles. And our little flicks. And do his other eye. And his little flicks. And then I'm going to do his paws. So I'm going to come up and go around. And I'm going to bring his curves up. His paws. I'm going to do the second one. And his curves. So there you are. There we have our little bunny on our page. And now it's all about rubbing our pencil lines out and then putting some colour on him to make him pretty, or her. So I'm going to just rub out my pencil lines. And again, this is why it's really important that when you draw with your pencil that you don't press too heavy, because we're going to rub out these lines and we don't want those pencil marks coming through with our paint when we paint it. So we want to make sure that we can take all those lines off and we get rid of them off our page, so that when we colour it all in, we have no pencil lines. Isn't he super cute? He's just such a pretty little bunny, and it's just fitting because it is Easter. So we've got a nice little bunny to paint for Easter. So now it's just a matter of getting rid of all those little bits of rubber off there. Just tidy that up. And now we're going to paint him. Her. Isn't she cute? So this is our first time using our washable markers. So I'm going to show you how you use these. So we're going to need our water and our paint brushes, and we're going to use our super tip washable markers. And these are really good because once you put these on your page and you add water to them, it spreads like paint. So I'm going to show you how that works, and I'm going to start doing it. So I'm going to take my washable marker, my super tip, and I'm not going to use the point, I'm going to use the side, and I'm just going to run it around the edges of my page, around the edges of our bunny's face, and just run it around the edges of the bow here. And it's this, the pigment that's in the pens is what will make that paint it look like paint. So I'm just going to add a little tiny bit more around the edges of that, just so that we've got plenty of colour there to be able to move it. So then you just take your paintbrush, and using your paintbrush, we just wet that paint, that pencil, that pen that we used, and it just spreads. We're just going to colour it all in, and it'll give us the different kinds of different colours. So around the edges will remain the darker, and it'll just get lighter as we come into the centre. It's just a matter of just moving that colour around. Taking it up to the end. So what we want to do is try not to get into the other areas, and you can see that I got in just there. I'll let that dry just a little bit. We'll leave that bow to the very end so that it doesn't we don't have that my colours running into that, so I can go over that with my paintbrush or my colour that I'm going to use in there. So I'm going to keep going with the rest of his face, and I'm going to colour in the rest of his face, and it's the same as I said. It's just taking that marker and running it around the outside, just colouring it all in around the edges, using that marker as our paint. And these super tip markers, and we just want to make sure that we don't go into the nose or into his mouth. We want to keep that because we're going to make that a pretty colour. So using the water, we're just going to wet that mark, the pigment that's in that paint or in that pen, and we're going to spread it out over our little bunny's face to make the colour. There we go. Just keep colouring him in and spreading that colour around. So now we've got most of his face painted, we will paint his ears. And again, using the grey, I'm going to paint around the edges of his ears. So we can use those colours, that pigment to spread. And paint his ear up with a bit of water on our brush, and let's spread that around and paint his ear. Isn't that cool how you can make these watercolour or water markers turn into paint, watercolour paint? So cool. And now we're going to do the same over here on this ear. We're going to go around the edges, just paint them all in. And the reason I'm using the watercolour paints here is I don't have a grey in my watercolour paints, otherwise I would have used them. But because I don't have it, we're using, and it's nice to do something different and use another alternative than the watercolour paints, and we'll use the markers, the Crayola markers, to do this. There we go. We have his ears painted. And now the only other grey piece we need to do is his feet. So I'm going to do the same with his feet. I'm going to paint that. I'm going to colour in around the edges of his feet. You've got to be careful with this, because if you do the pens, use these pens, and you don't, if you use the point, sometimes you end up with those marks, just like I just did there. Those marks, to get rid of them, it's a little bit difficult. So if we just use the watercolor pens and just use it around the edges and use the side of it, it spreads a little bit easier. So just keep going, moving those colours around. And there's our bunny feet done. So now I'm going to take the pink. I actually might move to my my watercolour paints now, because I actually want to use the light pink that's in this. I want to use the pretty pink, that really bright pink there, this one here, so that I can actually use it to paint the inside of his ears. So I'm going to use my brush. I'm just going to put a little bit of water on that, a couple of little dabs of water, so that I can get that colour to move and get that really pretty pink onto my brush. And I'm going to now paint the inside of his ear. Nice bright pink. Her. Keep saying it's a him, could be it's a her. And I'm going to do the inside of this ear. Paint it up nice and pretty. So he's got a nice little pink ear. Just dab that back on there, give that a little bit of a darker colour. Paint up his nose the same colour, or her nose the same colour. And I'm going to do the mouth as well. Just inside the mouth, we'll give it the same. Just to make it really light, a light pink. So one of the things I forgot to do was to paint his eyes. So with the Sharpie pen, before I go any further and give that all a chance to dry, I'm going to paint his eye. And being careful to go inside the lines, and I'm going to leave that circle that I've made there as the highlight of his eye. Paint the other side, do the other side, colour it in. And whenever you're using a permanent marker, you've got to be really, really careful, because you get it on something that it's not supposed to be on. It's very hard to get off. So there we have his eyes done. And all that's left now is to do his bow and the background. But how cute does he look just like that? So I'm going to go back to my pens, and I'm going to use the green and this bright pink to do my bows. And I'm going to do it the same way. I'm going to paint, can you put that away just for a second? I'm going to paint around the edges, and I'm just going to run my pen around the edges of the bow, around the circles, just so that I can spread that colour and make that a really pretty bright yellow, green bow. Yellow, I'm not using yellow, I'm using green. How pretty does that look? See, now that's really, really nice and bright. So now I'm going to go down to the other end, and I'm going to do the same down this end. I'm going to run that around, and I'm going to just go around all the circles, around the edges. I'm going to come back with my paintbrush, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to wet the colour and spread that nice green all through the design, around the bow, and brighten up the pretty bow. So now I'm going to take the pink, and being really, really careful, because I've just did that, we've just painted the green, so I want to put some colour onto the inside of our little circles. But we've got to be careful, because we really don't want this to run, but sometimes it might. So if it runs, but we just try and stay inside those lines, so that when we put the water on it, it doesn't run too far, and it just stays inside those lines. Just spread those colours around. Water to break down those colours so we can spread them. one thing I forgot to do was the center of our bow. So I'll come back and do that now. I'll just put some colour on it. Just add a little bit of water to spread that out. And there's our bow completed. So the next thing we need to do is to do our background. So you can do what, you can just leave that how you want. You could leave that as it is now, or you could actually come back and go around the outside of it. So I'm just going to come back and see if I can get that grey. Just, it might be a bit too dry now. There's a few little bit spots there that's, I don't have the grey. So I'm just going to come back and see whether I can get that to spread just that little tiny bit more. So now the background. Now you can, as I said, leave that the way it is, or you could actually do what I've done over here, is just do the little flowers with my watercolour paints, or you could do swirls, you could splatter it. It's up to you, however you want to do it. But I'm going to go with my little flowers like I did before, and I'm just going to use my watercolour paints to do that. And again, what that is, I'm just going to take my small brush and I'm going to wet my blue. I'm going to put a couple of dobs of my blue into water into my blue and get that nice and the colour loosened up so that I can use it on my page. So I'm just going to do nice little doblets of the blue to make my flowers. So I'm going to do the same again over here. Just going to spread them out over the page. So there's my little flowers. These are all my petals. Let them just dry just a little bit. Come down here and do some down here. And all I've done with this is just actually put the paint on the paintbrush, and all I'm doing is just putting my paintbrush down and dragging it through. Just put it down and pulling it to the center. Putting it down and pulling it to the center. And there's no shape about them, it's just adding colour to my page. So just putting the tip of the brush down and pulling the colour to the center. And again, put the tip of the brush down and pull it to the center. And that just gives me my petals. I'll go over this side, and I'm going to do a couple over this side. Just think this picture needs a little bit of, because it's predominantly grey, just needs a little tiny bit of something to give it a little bit of colour in the background. I'm just going to put my paintbrush down with the blue and pull that into the center to give it a little, the petals. Go up here into the corner, and I'm going to bring them down so that it looks like it's got coming out of the center, out of the corner. Do another one here. Okay. Down in this corner. Over in this corner. And I might just put another one just in here. I'm going to rinse out my brush. And I'm going to dip it into my yellow. I'll do this one here that's nice and bright yellow. Put a couple of dobs of water on that so that we can loosen up the paint. And then I'm just going to go, might not just have quite so much water on that, I might just put that in the centre of my flower. Just a little blob. Little blob. Just a small little dot. And because everything is nice and wet, it just runs just a little bit. While I have my yellow on my brush, I'm just going to add a couple of little spots all over my page, just to make it nice and bright. Just by adding a few little spots here and there, just adds a little tiny bit more colour to our background. And rinse my brush off, and I'm going to add now that to my green. A bit of water to my green, and we'll paint some leaves on our flower. We're going to do the same technique. Just going to put a bit of colour on our brush, and we're just going to bring, instead of coming from the centre, we're actually going to come from the centre and go out. Just a little line here and there to look like leaves. A bit more there. And this just finishes off our flowers. Puts that little tiny bit of colour into our drawing. As I said, he's a little bit, or she is a little bit grey. So there we have our flowers. So there we have our bunny. Our bunny is now complete. So if you draw this, I appreciate if you can post some pictures in the comments, share and like my page, and that at the end of this week I'm going to do a drawing. I've got some little giveaways to give away. I'm going to draw to some lucky person who does a child that does this drawing is going to get a prize. I thank you for joining me, and until next time, thank you very much. Bye.